Well, I think that there are two concerns here. The first one is that what we just talked about, namely that banks have been more cautious naturally, and there is not much you can do about it apart from tweaking some of the measures, for example, the tiering of the multiplier, to accept the fact that banks' profitability have been poor for many years and is now under further squeeze, and that will impair the transmission mechanism, and that will hurt the SMEs and the rest of it. They have to start to think about how one helps and figures a way to smooth the transmission mechanism. So that's the one part of it. And then the other side of it, as you said, what is the bazooka size like? Well, we think they're going to do $500 billion, so 500 billion, and extend it into the end of next year and maybe into 2022. The bazooka story is basically one, in my opinion, make it even bigger and make it longer. Because there's no realistic outlook that level GDP would have been restored until the second half of 2022 or thereabout. And you can always stop it. You could say we can phase it down. The beauty of a big bazooka, as we have seen too many times before, is that if it's there, then the market will actually do the work for you, and you don't even have to use it.
Erik, I'm using and good morning to you, my friend. I'm using your 76 page of notes to make the following comments as well. So it's not coming from me. And in what you just said as well. So the current ECB policy is helping to hurt the transmission mechanism and hurt small and medium-sized enterprises getting their growth. Is not creating growth itself, is not creating inflation to get anywhere near target as well, and is propping up equities, which will, according to your own copy, will be creating double-digit inclines in 2021. Isn't it time to just take a step back and say this is really quite perverse? It is creating bubbles in equity markets at a time when it's not working on the transmission mechanism, it's not working on growth mandates, it's not getting cash to SMEs, and is not creating an inflation target that is deemed respectable by those central banks themselves who are inaugurating this policy.
You put it a bit starker than I would, but and I don't think I wouldn't characterize, and I did not characterize the equity market as a bubble. I actually think there is still an upside in it, but the underlying question you have, I think, is true that we have come to a stage, right, where it's very difficult to see how one further stimulate the economy on the monetary policy side. And a key issue here is that we are around zero levels, and we have in Europe a incredibly important banking system for the transmission mechanism, more so than in America. And banks, as I said, have become, through the last 10 years, halfway public utility companies rather than private companies. So the profitability has just not been sufficient to pay a competitive dividend to the shareholders. And now you're looking at another year or two out where this is going to get even worse because the growth will be so low. So there is a real question here how you resolve this problem. So I think there is it doesn't mean you step back and do the opposite, obviously, but the composition of policies, both between fiscal and monetary, and my God, it has been better than it was before, right? But one has to start to think about also, or make sure that banks, which have been a part of the solution so far in this crisis, remains part of the solution and not turns into a problem.